First thing you do is install your mold resistant sheetrock. Then I will use some paintable caulking in all of the seams and the corners. Then I use some thin set to cover all the screw heads, and I use a alkali resistant mesh tape with thin set on all of the seams. Then after all that, I come back with Laticrete Hydraband. I do about 3 coats of this on all of the walls and all the corners, making sure it goes on really thick. I generally do about 3 coats, 3 pretty thick coats, and that's typically sufficient to get a nice waterproof barrier. After the walls are waterproofed, now I'll start on the pan and the curb. So here on the curb you can see I've got a sheet of plastic down, and then I'm doing a metal lath and I am tacking that in with staples. Then we're going to form our curb with wood, and we're going to pour it with some concrete. I like to use this rapid set mortar mix. It's really strong and it sets quickly. Mix it according to the instructions on the bag, and then you're going to pour it into your form and screed off the top. Remember, you want your curb to be sloping slightly into the shower, about 2 degrees. So if your inside form sits about a 1/16 lower than the outside form, that's usually good enough. So after the curb is built, I'll set the foam pan in place, cut it to size, and then I set my drain in, and I use that collar flange to waterproof. And then I'm actually going to come back over all this with seam tape in the corners and do a liquid Hydraband on the pan and up the walls. In this shower we're doing a floating bench, so I'm using the Better bench. Here you can see it installed. I do that after the walls have been waterproof. You come back, do a dry pack in the bench, let that solidify, and then you go over that with some thin set to fill in the front and a little bit of the top. Then once all that is set up, I waterproof the bench and the pan, and then it's all one big monolithic waterproof system. You can see here everything is waterproof. There's fabric tape in all the corners, and the shower's pretty bulletproof. So after all that waterproofing is nice and dry, I'm going to flood test the pan. As you can see here, draw a line on the wall, fill up your water in the pan, let it sit for about 24 hours, and you should have no substantial water loss if done correctly. In this case it was, and we were good to go.